Hi, Bet. It's Jeff Allen, and I want to give my background a bit. A lot of people know the results of what I do, but I want to kind of give the background I do. Actually, my children probably didn't know all the background, all of this too, and good for them to kind of hear it as well. Um, so I want to tell my background about church and ministry and missions, kind of tell the whole story. So this is not going to be a little 5 minute thing, but I think it's just good for you to all kind of well, I kind of hear it and see. I haven't been in one denomination. Things I've kind of we'll see. I'll explain how it's kind of evolved over time because of the living and going, living in different countries and all that kind of stuff and everything. So I'll starts back. My father was born in China, of a father who was born in China. My father was born as a missionary kid of his father who was born in China as a missionary kid of parents that went to China. So my great grandparents went to China with Hudson Taylor, the Hudson Taylor, um, and served there with him. And I've heard that they've been actually mentioned. Howard Allen has actually been mentioned in some books and stuff. But Hudson Taylor's kind of the visible person in the whole kind of whole all the books and stuff. That's fine. And so I kind of have a whole lineage there of missionary stuff. Um, and then another story, and it was kind of always not really kind of exact. No one ever knew. It was kind of wasn't sure if it was my grandfather went to school with the person, or if my uncle was actually in concentration camp with Eric Little of like the Chariots of Fire, the real guy who was running. And I think it came down to my uncle was in a concentration camp with him during the Second World War. So, and that was kind of really difficult for my uncle. I can really say it was a really difficult experience and didn't help, later on in life. It just was not a fun thing. So, and my grandfather and grandmother, I mean, after the 1950s, I mean, they were all thrown out of China in 1951, and so my father, my grandfather, I mean, he was living as a missionary in China, single, and he would walk down to the port. Now, walking down to the port for the next wave of kind of missionary single women wasn't like a walk down to the port, like today's thing. You got to think, back, 100 years, okay? Um, I want you to think back to if he was in inland China, he had to walk like a month or two or more, okay, to get to the port. So, and he did that one round, and they came back. The girl kind of refused, and so he went back home, and then he kind of did that again the next year, and so he finally got a wife and out of that. And so they had kids and stuff, and they were serving in China. But my father and his siblings all kind of grew up in boarding schools, not seeing their parents, every maybe luckily every 4 years, because of where they're and have to go. My father would write back onion paper, that thin onion, like Bible kind of paper, the Bible pages. Imagine that as writing, the onion paper that was really cheap to send on the airline, aerograms and stuff. You had to write in that one direction, then turn the page at 90 degrees, and write again, and flip over the page and then write, and turn 90 degrees and write again. And that was what they wrote to in their parents. My father would tell me stories about when he was a kid, and he lived in Nepal, and when they shipped all the youngest children over to Nepal, so they kind of during the beginning of during the World War II, and to kind of protect the children from getting captured. And that actually, what I understand, my uncle was old and he got captured, so it kind of spent time in the concentration camp. So that kind of the big kind of background. It's not all glorious, folks. It's not all glorious. It did cause damage to families, and that's going to be important as I tell more of the story here in a couple minutes. Um, uh, of that whole family of four children, I think there was a fifth child who didn't survive. Um, my aunt uh, married a guy, and they went to the Philippines as missionaries, and so I always knew them as missionaries to the Philippines with Conservative Baptist, which now has the name World Venture today. Um, but I always knew them as that, and so I remember them always come back every couple of 3, 4 years with my cousins and kind of it was kind of the event to kind of see them, every 3, 4, 5 years. And as time would grow over, I would actually spend a lot more time with those cousins, and that my aunt and uncle. I remember picking up at the airport while I was in college, picking up at the airport. No one at the mission actually went to pick them up. I went and picked them up, and we'd go out for pancake for dinner, and kind of stuff. Really, just all kinds of great memories of that couple that I supported. Actually, when I was in college, I actually sent them money, not a whole lot, but I supported my aunt and uncle in their mission um, for a number of years. I didn't remember how long, and I was working and going paying for school, my Bible school as well. So I'll get that in a kind of minute too. This is all linear, okay? This is all converging at different moments. It's just not a linear path. Things are happening in parallel. That's kind of how it is. Um, um, and then, so earlier on, at age 14, I started going to church with my dad. It was a Foursquare church, so Foursquare has its position in the spectrum. Okay, it's a little more Pentecostal, kind of charismatic Pentecostal there. Okay, kind of alongside the Assembly of God, kind of a little bit less, but kind of depends on who's the pastor is and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of grew up in that, and actually served there on staff for. I served on staff for about 10 years, mainly as custodian and janitor work to pay for my education. And they paid us really well. That church really, really paid us very, very well for what we're doing because they really valued what we were doing. And there were quite a few students, or a lot of guys. Actually, there weren't many girls that did it, but several guys went to the local Bible school there, Multnomah University now, which is pretty well now. It's got a really great reputation, actually. Very, very good. So we were lucky to have that kind of, across town. And so a lot of there were probably 4, 5, 6 guys at least, maybe more, that over time, over a period of 10 years, that when I was there, they were, kind of doing their studies and at the Bible college and doing their, working in a job or so. And so, in one summer, I actually did a summer. I went on for the Bible school. I got to be an assistant pastor for one of the things, and so I was kind of involved in a lot of the ministries there, a lot of music stuff, a lot of youth ministry, a lot of and and even help with the adult singles, folks, and I gave a lot of sermons, what a message you want to call those things, and kind of helped to just serve in a lot of different things. And And there was a certain point where I was kind of deciding what I would do. I wanted to be youth pastor when I was younger, when I was like 15 on, because my model, Rick is really my model, and he's my younger son's middle name is Rick because of that. And I kind of shifted in the 30 years because I became 30-year Bible school. Of the 3 years, I felt really more to being a youth pastor. I felt something over abroad, and I already had an interest for languages, and I already had done that, and I already was really good at French and Spanish already. But in Bible school, I didn't have those languages, and I want to study the dead languages, so it just didn't interest me to study dead languages. So, but I came on to the third year. I just kind of really said I really want to do something international. So I began kind of studying that and preparing for it because I had to go for my 4th year, do some other classes. So I took a lot of language classes and stuff my 4th year at the university, kind of, which classes transfer back to Multnomah and stuff so I could make it. And during that 4th year, I really prepared for thinking what I want to do in the future. I was deciding what I was going to do. My parents weren't paying for anything, and I really wanted to do what I wanted to do. And I really wanted to go international. And I really thought about this whole, there was missionary conferences at the Bible school at Multnomah, and they had things about, itinerant missionaries. Now there was all kind of change having itinerant missionaries that could help with all the missionaries in Africa and elsewhere that could, the missionary would kind of be itinerant and go around, and so that the children didn't have to be, in boarding school. I think, hey, this is going to help fix my whole family's background stuff. This could be a fix to this. So I kind of began to look into that. and looked at a bunch of missions during my fourth year of college of what I want to do. And I kind of decided I want to get into being a missionary teacher. But the problem with having that is you got to have a content you can teach. And Bible is like the thing that's going to get you to get to Africa teaching Bible. I mean, honestly, you got to have something that they're going to want to have you teach that has content that's going to be useful for students. So, um, and to be able to get there and linguistically and all that. So I decided at the fourth year to do a second bachelor's degree in 1 year in French. And so I did a second bachelor's degree actually in French at the university there at Portland State University. And at the same time, I applied for Wycliffe to be with their kind of overseas department, children's education department. It's called CHEDA. I don't know what it's called now, but so I kind of wanted to go in that direction. They, of course, were sure, go, let's do it. So I wanted to get a teaching certificate and all that kind of stuff. I was looking at that. I was getting my French. I got my French degree, and I decided, okay, I want to get a teaching certificate now. Kind of want to do that, look at that kind of stuff. And it was actually looking okay, maybe going back and looking at the getting another degree, maybe in Bible and like a master's degree or something. I was kind of looking at different opportunities, okay, during that year where I was getting my second bachelor's degree. And I was working. I was working full time well, so I mean, I was paying for it. I had the money to do what I needed to do if I needed to do something. And I was looking at all kinds of other missions too, to be honest. All kinds of them. And I had a whole folder, just they're all class, everything's categorized. But some of them actually, I was looking for all kinds of, even tent making stuff, language teaching, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I wasn't, but some of them just really actually refused me. They actually rejected me just because I had a Foursquare background. That's kind of like, this is, whatever. That kind of taught me about a few things early on. So, and then, but actually the Foursquare church I, was working at, no, why didn't I do Foursquare? I'll tell you why. It was a big one. I mean, it was not a small church. It grew from 200 to 10,000 in like the 10 years. So, I mean, it grew incredibly. And so that's a great opportunity, because like, hey, missionary, you can be fully funded. And yeah, it could have been. But in the Foursquare church, you got to go a certain route. And you got to be a pastor first in the States for a period of like 2 years or something. I'm telling you what it was back then. It may have changed since, but I'm sure it's pretty similar today. And then you have to do that, and then you have to, get a pastor church, but it means you get to go start up a small dinky church somewhere, or if you're lucky to get in the bigger one. I was lucky to be bigger one, but I didn't want to be in the same place I've already been in before. So, and there were opportunities. And they had opportunities where this church was a big church, and they were seeing off, people to go start a plant other churches elsewhere in the U.S. And so I had already been working with the pastors there, with Mike and the adult singles group, and he was going to kind of be sent out. He and his family go start a new church in Idaho, and he asked me to come. He asked me to come and be an assistant pastor. No money, of course, but it's opportunity to do to begin that journey. But I was just really wanting to. I was cutting out in my path, and I knew what I wanted to do, and so I kind of left an opportunity that would have allowed me to be fully funded. Okay, it's really fully funded. I'm not kidding here, because when you go to the pastor, the Foursquare, they fully fund you after you've been gone through this cycle, if you're chosen, of course. And there's always that risk of not getting chosen, so selected, whatever. But I already had my path. So I had done my associate's degree in Bible. I had done a bachelor's degree in Bible. I got my bachelor's degree in French, and I was already in that path and kind of getting down. I knew I wanted to do something kind of more quickly and not go through another cycle of, having to go be a pastor in a small church. You got to start up, you got to get it going, you got to do that for 2 to 3 years and all kind of stuff. It's just kind of, that wasn't what I wanted to do, because I knew that it would stop my path of what I was doing. So I get the light here, get the sunlight coming here, but hey, the sun's coming out from behind the clouds. So I kind of chose not to do that. Didn't choose that opportunity, and I was applying for a bunch of national scholarships and stuff, and I had the grades and all that kind of stuff to do it. I was in the National Honor Societies and had been elected a Who's Who of America and all that kind of stuff in the university. So I mean, I was kind of fine to have all the to get something out of that, some kind of thing. And lo and behold, at the end of my second bachelor's degree, the university faculty of the French department selected me to be the person that got sent overseas for a 1 year fellowship to teach in France. Because I was in their classes all day long for 8 hours a day, basically, for 1 year, because I didn't the bachelor's in 1 year. So I was like in every single class you could imagine, and had all the professors. So I got sent off on an overseas assignment by Portland State University, kind of send me over to go teach for a year, teach English, and come back and teach French and get my master's degree in French at Portland State. That's how these things work. So I got a job, and I went to France the following year, and went to Lyon, and really that was my sabbatical year, to tell you the truth. I'd really worked really hard to pay for my education, to do all that janitorial work. It was kind of nice to not have to do that all the time. And I, so I'm in France. I'm saying I came to France, and had a year that was I got to travel. I never got to travel. I was in college, all those years in college, and those 2 degrees, and even high school. I never got to travel or have any vacation time. I was always all year long work and school, work and school, work and school, from like junior high even. So so I kind of just took the year. I traveled every 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You got a 2 week time off. So I actually traveled through Europe. Just really had a lot of fun doing that. I really needed that. Um, did some running around the track. Was really doing well, and had brought my bicycle with me. So kind of did a lot of bicycle riding and stuff. Um, and so at the so I had an opportunity to come overseas. Okay. And so I kind of added on top of that, because while that thing, I'm actually applying to Wycliffe to be this teacher education, but I get this job now in the middle of it. I get this job. So I'm on this 2 year kind of stint thing, but I got this job that's kind of, hey, you don't refuse these things. And Wycliffe really does, and SIL does really like when people have degrees. So, for me to be sent on a thing, come back and be able to continue my degrees, and actually have a teaching research to pay for it, that's really great. I mean, this is great, because you don't have to have missionary, people funding it. You're actually funding it yourself by the university paying you to do it. So this is like really cool. You just don't refuse this thing. Or I just said, I'm not going to refuse it. But that kind of said this thing, well, how do we deal with this Jeff being in France thing? Now, during that time, so that kind of set us in that thing to kind of, okay, let's put it on hold here for a while. Well, not quite, and I'll explain how this. Well, no, it did put at that point in time it put on hold. Okay, so I'm kind of, because there are 2 different time periods we keep coming to this here now. I've kind of got an outline to keep myself on track of this, but there are things that, again, it's not linear. Okay, there are things that come at certain points. I come to France, and I audit some classes in teaching French and foreign language, which I had actually taken the one in the States of that thing, and I had been teaching in France, actually teaching a teaching system for one of the teachers in their my final year there too, at Portland State, of the bachelor's degree. The year I was doing the bachelor's degree, but the final year in the States at that point in time. And really liked it, and came to France and taught English, and I taught English not only university, but also I taught, that year I taught in business language schools, and I taught in a technical high school, techno-vocational high school. And just had a really great year. And during but I audited some classes at the university, kind of have fun. So when I was not traveling and stuff, I just wanted to have fun, and I still wanted to do things in the university. So I studied there, and in the Department of Linguistics there, and I had a Swahili class. And I love that Swahili class, because every week they were trying to put us in the same situation as our students would be in the future, when you don't know anything, and they just boom, immersion Swahili for 2 hours a week. It was great. It was really great. And I can actually still speak the same things 30 years ago with what we learned in that class, because it was just ingrained. It was just really an excellent thing they did. And Then I was preparing to go back to the States because the year-long stint would be over, and I was going to do a master's in French, obviously, at that point in time. Um, I had a deal lined up with the university to kind of do that, and then my cousin, who's a linguist, he he dropped through Europe. He was kind of working in the Russian linguistics and stuff, and he dropped through Europe, and I was on a trip, and he stopped by, and we spoke for a few days. He kind of came over to the place I was living at, and you know, we spent a few days talking, and I told him what I wanted to do, and I wanted to get in linguistics. And he grew up in this. I mean, he grew up in Philippines, okay, of the family I'm talking about. Um, so he grew up in the Philippines, and he understood this language stuff pretty well. And he was a linguist on top of it. Um, so he told me, I said, how do I do this fast? I mean, how do I gonna get into this fast? How do I? This is what I want to do. I really want to do this. And he just said, okay, you need to do SIL. You need to do the Summer Institute of Linguistics training, which I already know. Wycliffe, I already know. Okay. He says you got to do that because they're going to prepare you really fast. Boom. They're going to give you a solid training. Boom, and then do your master's. And do my master's at Portland State. Um, because I was already going to be teaching at Portland State, so I could do a master's there. Great. So this is kind of like lining up here. Okay, this is great. So that was he and I talked probably in January, February. I can't remember when he came by, but so I told basically Wycliffe that I kind of want to shift directions and get in linguistics, and they had the summer. And actually, in Oregon, where I'm going back to, was the program of SIL in Oregon at the University of Oregon at Eugene, and my best friend lived there. Um, so we kind of worked it out that I would actually be able to go and study full time for that summer. Coming back from France, staying with my best friend's parents-in-law, which again I didn't have to work. It was just like, wow, the first time in my life I didn't have to work at the same time as studying. I get to study full time. This is great. Um, I mean, I really believe it's important to work too, but it was kind of good to be able to just dedicate my time to really do it. Because if I can do 100% of my time rather than like 50% of it or 30% to studying, you can give a lot more energy to it. So I got to spend the summer there. Did really well in that summer class. Learned a ton. Um, got to form a lot of friendships too. Had a girlfriend too. That was great. Um, that's a lot of those summer things. A lot of relationships build up. Um, and 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 then came back to Portland the fall and did my master's in a year. Okay, I did a master's in linguistics, applied linguistics. I'll say that applied linguistics. But I took all the linguistics classes, all the linguistics theoretical stuff. I just really loved it. Um, so I'd done the phonetics and morphology SIL, and I basically took, the first year I was taking phonology, syntax, semantics, bam, 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 but just everything I took. First and second acquisition level language acquisition for psycholinguistics, both the classes, and there was a sociolinguistics class. Now this is where the kind of thing happens at SIL this summer. Again, this is where these are overlapping things. It's not linear. Um, they mentioned in one of the classes, the SIL course in the class, there was like, and I was kind of thinking, what do I want to do? I mean, what do I want to do here? What do I want to get into? Because I kind of picked the language here. I got to pick a language. What I would do here. What I want to do. I want someone to pick it for me. So why don't I get to pick my own? I want to work on it. So they talked about Creole languages, and I thought, yeah, that's kind of interesting. This is something that a lot of people haven't worked on yet. Because the French stuff, everybody's working on it yet. Tons. Um, and then I got to Portland State, and in the fall, and I took a sociolinguistics class. And again, now Jim Nadiger is here. He's just talking about the Creole language. I'm going, man, this is for me. This is me. And so this is what I said to Wycliffe. I said, okay, look, um, I want to get into Creole linguistics. Um, I want it in Creole. So if you got a team to do Creole stuff, I'll work with it. Okay, that's what I want to do. It's not like, okay, you tell me where I want to go, because this usually what happens to people. People say they're available. Where do you want to send me? Okay, now I said this is what I want to do. Do you have somebody to do it? Okay, or do you have a team that's already in place and I want to work on this? Because I want to work on something I want to work on. Okay, I really knew what I wanted to do. Um, and yeah, they happen to have a team in the Caribbean, and they had a need to do survey work across the different Caribbean languages and stuff. So that's great. Hey, So I started kind of planning along with them to be able to do that, do survey work, and work with the team there in St. Lucia. I was already been there for a number of years. They already had some folklore stories. They already had some text. They were already folklore text. They had a few portions of the Bible. They had done Matthew, I don't know, Luke, and a few chapters of the Bible and stuff in the Old Testament, kind of Genesis stuff, and some the Old Testament stories and some of the New Testament, or one of the books. Lots of folklore stories. So there's a lot of written material, which is great because that's how I started learning it. I started actually reading all these texts. That's how I learned it. I didn't learn it by speaking. I learned it by reading it. It's very phonetic. It's kind of think like Spanish if you want. So it was really easy to learn. And so I'm doing this whole year while I'm doing the linguistic stuff. My master in linguistics, applied linguistics in Portland State. At the end of the year, I have everything done my thesis, and then there's a position open through the Portland State in the Oregon University system back in the same city I lived the year before. And I just like, no brainer, I'm applying for this job, okay? And I got it. I got the graduate teaching assistant job, actually in the study abroad program over in Lyon where I'd lived the year before. It was really easy to pitch this one. I just got it. Because it's like, send someone back to the same place they've lived. There's just like no brainer. This guy's gonna be able to survive there quite well, And I knew I'd lived there a year, so I just knew it, inside out. And so I got this job, and so I got to tell Wycliffe again, hey, guess what? I'm on another overseas assignment thing. So, and this is like they don't know what to do with me. But I said, look, okay, what we'll do is So this job isn't just a job; it's a teaching assistantship, which means that I actually have to be a university student, which is fine. I'm already at the Portland State, so I did the whole master. I did a whole nother series for a whole nother master's degree, actually in France at the University of Lyon, where I had actually studied the year before. Remember, in the Department of Linguistics, so that kind of played in really well. So some of the teachers already knew me, and so I taught. So I took the master's program in France, and that in 1 year, finished that, bam, bam. Did dialectology too, and did some kind of studying of patois, often kind of outside of Lyon because there was dialectology class. And I said, this can take me too much longer. I'll do the Creole stuff. Bam, got my thesis done in like a month or two, just done. 115 pages or something like that, and just done. Because I just wanted to work on the stuff I already working on, rather than try to do other stuff too that the university wanted me to do. Let me work on the stuff I'm really good at, and all this good. So got it done. So finished that master's really quickly, and at the same time, I had already negotiated with kind of Wycliffe and SL to set up their entire set of not applied, all the intro classes to linguistics. So I was going to teach that summer at the end of this master's degree in Lyon, okay, this graduate teaching assistant job in Lyon. Which I was doing a master's degree in linguistics at the French University. So I've got access to all the libraries and stuff. So I said, okay, what's up? I mean, come on. Let me set up the French courses. They didn't have any intro courses. They didn't have all these intro courses I'd taken the year before in 1990 in the summer with SI. I said, look, just let me take that whole class thing that we did there and let me convert it all into French. I'm not going to say translate. I'm going to say convert. Because yeah, you translate some things, but all the things you got to do it in French. It's not just translating things into French. It's taking the same ideas and giving examples in another language of other languages with written materials that are written French about it. So I had the kind of library to access all the materials. So I'm paying for all this stuff. I'm actually paying for all the photocopies to create this new little library in French of French written materials about other languages, usually in Africa or whatever, about different aspects of linguistics. So I basically did the phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, psycholinguistics 1 and 2, sociolinguistics, and dialectology and literature. That's kind of the whole gamut of things I want to do there. And that's what I taught that summer. So that really got me into teaching really well. I really knew all the topics very well, being able to teach them in French, not just English. and with the materials that we had to do, we give the students the reading materials in French. Um, so, but then they were kind of figuring out what to do with me because I didn't fit their funding model. I didn't fit their funding model. I kept kind of not fitting their funding model, you know? I just kept getting these jobs overseas. And they said, we don't know what to do with you. And I didn't get the Fulbright scholarship because I had too much experience, okay? So probably overseas, that probably didn't help. And I just didn't all work that way. Um, and I did forget to mention here, I didn't follow my outline here. I got a thing that during that first year in France, the year 1990, 89 and 90, I actually worked in a summer camp as well. So it wasn't just that teaching year, the sabbatical. I actually spent a whole summer in a summer camp, which had been funded by a person from my church in Oregon, to me to do this mission thing for a short-term mission for a summer to teach in a youth camp with France Mission, and one of their camps that's really well known, and still is today. So I got to do that too, and that kind of helped me kind of redirect. It was helping kind of get my vision of what I want to do. Okay, so it was. So I did that before. I forgot to mention about that. So I've worked with different organizations, different missions. That's what I want to say here. It's not always been the same thing. It's been different ones as time goes and evolves. So fast forward back again to after the the summer of 1992, I was finishing my master's degree, finished up my printing my master's, defended my master's um, at the University of Lyon, and in linguistics on the sociolinguistics aspects of the island of Saint Lucia, which is a French Caribbean Creole language. So about the historical aspects of that language and lots of things, and I came up with a lot of kind of interesting things about that too. And it's kind of like it was the language of like there were it was and I was using all the SIL Wycliffe materials to do that, kind of begin to get that language. And I came up with pretty cool. I actually published a paper in the SIL working papers on former lexifier language acquisition with the name of FLLA, kind of a new concept. Former lexifier language acquisition, yeah. So, um, and then but Wycliffe just didn't know what to do with me, and we kind of figured out how could they. I was teaching at the university too, so I actually got a teaching job at the university as a lecturer in the University of Lyon as well. So I had a job actually of making money after this graduate teaching assistant job with Oregon kind of finished. I could still stay in Lyon, and so. But the thing is, you need to have a primary job. The university job was kind of an extra thing, so they could pay you really well, but it's an extra job. You got to have a primary job while you're studying too, because I have a student visa. So I was working in basically, I had a lecture job and I was teaching, I don't know, maybe 10 hours a week. Um, and then I was teaching business schools too. Um, I think I could only do up to 10 or 20 hours a week. I can't remember how much at that point in time. And so I stayed as a student, but I didn't have so I kind of lived in house with the family and gave them English lessons to kind of get by for the year and another year. I can't remember how to do that, something like that. And then I stayed down and do my doctoral work. And the Wycliffe just didn't work out because I just didn't know what to do with me. Okay, I just didn't fit the funding model. Just didn't fit the funding model. And they said, well, you can't come do the survey in St. Lucia, and you don't have money to come. You don't have the supporters funding you. Again, remember, I had made the choice to do this. I had made the choice to choose this path. I had made the choice to not choose to have, you know, you church people funding me. And I kept doing letters back to the church. Okay, I was doing letters back to church too during the year, the first year and the second year. I was doing letters. I had sending back. My best friend was actually handling all my letters for me. So I was doing all those monthly, quarterly information bulletin, prayer letter kind of things. I was doing that too. So it wasn't like I wasn't doing that. I was doing it. But it's really hard to do this when you're living overseas, and especially when you're living overseas, you got jobs. People just don't understand why you wouldn't want to do a prayer letter if you got a job. I mean, so this is kind of a funny situation to be in, um, and and kind of uncomfortable one because it's like, well, where do I fit in all this? Um, it wasn't I didn't fit. I didn't fit the forms or the molds that kind of are expected to be in this whole thing, the overall picture. how things were done at that time back in the 1990s and 80s, 90s, and yeah, 80s and 90s basically. So so Wycliffe kind of let me go during 1992, 93. Not let me go. We didn't continue because they just didn't know where to put me because they didn't have a thing where I could do. They couldn't hire me because I didn't have funding, but I had funding, but I just need to have a primary employer and I just need to have just a basic, I don't know, pay me €1, pay me a $1 for the year and then the rest I could, it doesn't matter. I'll cover the rest. It was kind of had to be just formally it's an administrative thing, and they didn't want to go through. And that's I can understand that. Okay, whatever. I mean, that's how it happened. So they kind of let me go on that, and so I continued on and just stayed on doing basically giving English classes for room and board in families, and then teaching at the university and making the money for that. And I kind of got married in the middle of that too. So and then I decided to head back to the States and continue on with my career studies. Doing doctoral work at additional postdoctoral work at Indiana University. I get to choose where I want to go now. I get to choose where I want to go. Teaching French and teaching and doing linguistics and Creole and stuff. I get to really go where I want to go and do that. So I got married in France. Was a French girl, and we went to the States, and and she knew my background, but I don't know if she really understood the whole thing to the. I mean, we'd known each other for several years, but I didn't think she really understood how committed I was to this. Really committed to it. Um, but so we went to the States. Now her English was really not that good at all, and we spoke in French the whole time. So I mean, it didn't matter. As a friend of the family, all that. So went to the States, and in the States, you get to a new town, and then I actually got in the industry. So I got a job in the industry and stuff, and I don't want to go through all that. That's in another story. Um, but so we lived in Central Illinois. After Indiana University, went to Central Illinois, and so we looked there, and there's a Foursquare church there, so we go to the Foursquare church because I grew up in Foursquare. She grew up in kind of the Baptist thing. I grew up in the Foursquare, so we go to the Foursquare church, kind of test it out. And it's like there's 10 people at church, 7 of them on our stage. And my wife doesn't speak English very well. It's like, no, this is not for us. No, I mean, when they heard where I came from, the Foursquare church I came, but yeah, come do this, come do this. I mean, because I knew once you come from that, you got a lot of experience. But no, we just don't need this. I mean, we just got married and stuff. We know. So we decided not to do it. So we tried to, we eventually got settled in the Evangelical Free Church there in Illinois. Now it's pretty cool, and that was a great experience. Small church kind of thing, and it was a great thing. Kind of different than I'd been. And I'd been in Evangelical Free Churches actually back in Lyon as well. So again, I'm not actually putting all these things as I'm going because it reminds me of the things I'm going here. So I'd back in the Evangelical Free Churches in Lyon. I was there for the 2 different years. I was in Lyon, and then yeah, we went down. We found that, and it was better than. Then we kind of all kind of it depends on where you feel at home. So whatever, we felt home with that. And we moved to Pittsburgh. I had an opportunity to go to Carnegie Mellon University for a job there, and went to Pittsburgh. And we tested the different things there. The churches and the evangelical. No, so it was the Church of Christ actually in Pittsburgh was the place where we just felt home. We just felt at home. The Church of Christ church there, and just really we felt home there. It was just it was a great thing. Um, Helped in the music and stuff, and didn't really did I do any preaching? I can't remember. I did. Maybe I did some things. 'Cause I had a Bible degree, so I mean, might as well use it, and be unhelped. I did a lot of the music ministry stuff, but I think I maybe did a few messages too. I did sermons, whatever. Um, and then we came back to France after 4 years, um, and we looked for a house and stuff around Paris. It was in Paris, the job and stuff. So, and there had been a lot of the churches from the Conservative Baptist missionary kind of thing, which is World Venture now. They'd kind of set up had a lot of missionaries come here to France, and had set up a lot of churches here, and had really supported the French church. And there were French pastors starting to do their Bible degrees and started that. They were finally beginning to kind of set lots of churches in Paris and the church there. So we went to one of the churches that we knew one of the couples there because they were good friends of ours. I had gone through Bible school and stuff, and we had known, so we kind of decided to kind of help them and support them. So we got involved in that church, for a long number of years, and did a lot of music ministry, a lot of messages and sermons and stuff, and did okay there. It was so. But then my wife, she had we didn't have kids yet, so she got a job at with the Campus Crusade office, not for France, but actually for middle of Europe, because the middle for all of the um, kind of Middle East and Africa, they couldn't have the office in those countries, so they had them in action in France. So she worked at that office as a secretary there, see how they kind of function and stuff. She was on staff, get to know all the staff people and how they and all well the staff people, all the missionaries there, and how they were doing things and how that kind of works and stuff. And then and also at the same time we had supported a Haitian child through Compassion International, which in France has a separate branch called SEL. Cell. It's basically a partner with Compassion. Basically, it's the same. It is Compassion, just the French branch of it. Okay. So we had been supporting a child for a few years already since we got married, and come back to France. It's been about 4 or 5 years already. We've been supporting a child from Haiti, and then her sister, my sister-in-law got a job there. We found there was a job actually. One of the people in church said, "Hey, there's a job at the French branch of Compassion." Hey, so his sister looking for a job. She's looking for a job, and so she got a job there, and she met her husband there. So he was working there too, and so the whole Compassion kind of thing, know it pretty well how it functions and all that. So I've kind of seen that, and seen how it that another mission organization. So I already said I've already done things with France Mission, already done things with Wycliffe and SIL, have already worked with different denominations, have said no to Foursquare for their mission stuff because I'm doing other stuff, because I wasn't kind of following what they want to do, and I'm not in their church planning. I'm in different stuff. It's not church planning. And then the whole Conservative Baptist mission, know that pretty well because my grandparents or my parents, my uncle and aunt, OMF, my grandparents, and then Campus Crusade, my wife, and then Compassion International, again, my brother and my sister-in-law and my brother, and then a few years later, probably another decade later, I say here, we were involved in a kind of a new church plant here in France of France Mission, which actually had some support from a church, a big mega church in the States. Kind of saw how that worked. Didn't really agree with it. Just didn't fit. Just saw some things I just didn't see. Just wasn't my thing on that. Okay. And that's okay. That's fine. Don't want to judge or anything. It just wasn't um, kind of where I felt the thing. Then got to be a church warden. There was an Anglican church here, and the Anglican churches has churches all over the world actually, and so now we had kids, and so it was kind of good for the kids to kind of hear English too, outside of because I speak them at home, but they don't get the schoolings in French and stuff. So we want to have the opportunity to them kind of hear English a lot more than just dad, because so we went to the English speaking church for a while. Here in the Paris suburbs, and so I became church warden of that, which is kind of basically an elder role, or senior elder role, or what do you want to call it, or elder role. And I was the only one, so it was like the only one, and it was kind of a crisis situation, a real crisis situation to kind of be involved and kind of help through and kind of guide it through and navigate through troubled waters. So that was kind of being the vice president of that and kind of trying to make that happen stuff. That was another see how the Anglican Church works. So because the Anglican churches, they're all missionaries basically, kind of being sent from England to all these different posts. So it's another kind of mission setup. Really got to know that well because I was dealing with the Archdeaconry and the Bishop of France and the Bishop of Europe on a weekly basis. So I mean, I got to really know that well and how that struggles and all the things they got to do because there you can't have any. It's like you can't have pastors. You got to have pastors that have been licensed and stuff, and people can't even, they can't even do the communion and stuff without having the pastor, the priest that has actually, the chaplain that has actually done this and stuff. I actually have a whole nother series about the difference between the Anglican Church and the other mainline Protestant evangelical church. I have a whole other video series just on that. So I'm going to do this here again. I kind of want to say this is my background, and on top of that, just in business and industry, and I've done really well in business industry on you know the whole thing of automated translation, computer generated translation systems, and computer generated authoring systems and speech technology. So that's kind of my thing. Um, and I've done a lot for that. Um, Haitian Creole is in Google Translate, Microsoft Translator app, and in Facebook. That's kind of about my underlying. That's all based on my underlying data of the systems I built and stuff before. So I'm kind of really known for that. So I can have this funny ministry that's kind of it's with all the business people and stuff, or everyone else that are just non-churchgoers. That's fine. I mean, that's what I am. Um, the ministry, it's just who I am. I live it every day, and people respect me for who I am and how they get to see me in everyday life, of how I react to projects and stuff, and when things go wrong, and how to deal with it, and the music bands at the work and stuff, where we get groups of employees that do bands and stuff, and just and 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 it's really fun to be able to just be who I am, and be that. And so right now, I don't try to claim a an association or affiliation with any type of church denomination or missions thing. It's kind of like wherever there's the need, I'm there. And maybe I'm itinerant. Maybe that I'm itinerant teacher. That was wanted to be with Wycliffe and it didn't work out. Maybe I'm just not an itinerant whatever. And I don't need a visa, because I've already got it, because I have permanent residence here in France now, and so that's maybe just what I am. And I kind of fill holes and do things here and there and whatever. But the whole thing, I think the difficulty, and I'll kind of mention this back just to come. And again, this is all I'm just talking. I can't say every single thing in this outline. It's not linear. It's all kind of weaving in and out. And when we came back to France, so in the 1990s, after we'd lived in the States for several years, we came back, and after I had gone through this whole thing of the Wycliffe, not want to keep me and stuff, I kind of really struggled that for years, to tell you the truth. Um, so I didn't really mention my background in any of this till when I came to the churches. I didn't really mention that, because I didn't want it to kind of make me look like I didn't want to look like the failed missionary. That's just not cool. It's not what you want to do, especially when you're a business person stuff. You just don't want to look that. And so I never really mentioned it for many, many, many years. Or only like one or two people knew. It's kind of a hidden thing. I didn't want to talk about it. Um, and that was difficult, because it actually made me not grow. It made me kind of hide this stuff to who I was. And that wasn't good either. And it made it harder when I finally began to tell people that I had my background. They're just discovering this a decade later. So where did this come from? Where in the world? Where did you do this? How did you do this? We didn't know anything back. So this kind of wasn't good to actually hide that. But I hid it because of, I didn't fit the mold, didn't fit the thing. And I'll tell you, I still don't fit the mold. I still don't fit the mold in many different things. But so that kind of whole kind of background it too. And I want to finish up on purpose and meaning and all that, and the purpose of how things are. This you've seen. I've been explaining the story that kind of weaves in and out, and it has different things that kind of come in and they come back again and fit here. And it's not it's not linear. Okay, it's very parallel things happening, and then they come back again. And the thing comes back again. And I want to finish up with this was 2012. So this is 20 years after I had done that summer class at SIL France in Wycliffe. 20 years after I'd taught all those students and set up the whole course and taught all the students, a course. It was a set of courses that we did for the 9 weeks. And I really invested in that and paid for the whole thing myself, and I remember bringing the box of books. I actually brought the books. I put them in one of those big potato sack bags, those. And I would be dragging it through the subway system in Paris with all my stuff, backpacks and stuff, dragging this big potato sack bag that they send for the books when they send them overseas and stuff in the boats, pulling that through the subway, the trains, the subway systems, getting up to Paris from Lyon, then getting through the subway systems, and all these books, these articles I'd collected for that year and brought them up and get them finally up to way north of Paris and to give that class. It was like, and I got to deliver the box, and actually train the people with that box. So, I mean, that was it was a really major investment. It was really hard to kind of be let go or whatever we want to call that, just not continue or because it just didn't fit. So 20 years later, um, um, uh, I was at one of the every year there is this. I call it the Christian Mecca. Okay, it's got to bring two things together. So it's this pilgrimage of all the Christians across all of France that come to Paris on a weekend, and usually November, um, to kind of all get together. All the book publishers are there, all the musicians are there, all the nonprofits are all Christian nonprofits are all there on this. They have all booths and stands and stuff, and they're just all there. They're like 3 or 4 rooms full of people, so you can go meet everyone. It's a networking thing of Christian kind of the whole Christian community. But you all got to buy books, buy stuff. Everybody buys all their Bibles, and you get ready for Christmas, and all the goodies and the stuff. And so I go to this is 20 years later, after that moment, and this is now 30 years because this is the 10 years later today, this year. So I go to the stand for OMF, Overseas Missionary Fellowship, and go there, and of course they're all kind of want to grab onto the next person to talk to. Marketing people, they want to get you, they want to bring you in to get you interested, either to do funding, to provide funding, or to donations, or be a missionary. Okay, that's what they all do, and that's fine. Yeah. And I said, no, I know you guys. How do you know us? Well, I said, well, my great grandparents went to China with Hudson Taylor. Oh, really? You know, so it's kind of like, oh, that's not like every day you run into somebody that's got that background. Yeah, I know that. I wanted to be actually a missionary kid teacher from that. Okay. Then I go over to the Wycliffe booth, and I think this was even more kind of pertinent here. I go to the Wycliffe booth, and there they got 2 ladies, and one of the ladies is the director of Wycliffe in France, brand new director of Wycliffe in France, who had just come from Africa, had served in Africa for a number of years. And so we're talking, the same kind of thing. I want to latch on. It's marketing. You got to get, doing, they're looking for people to get funding. I mean, it's hard to get funding in France, so they want to get funded people, and that's okay. I can totally understand that. So I said, no, I know you guys. How do you know us? Again, the same kind of thing. I said, well, it's kind of funny. I says 20 years ago that I actually set up all the intro classes to linguistics and taught them. And I was the department head of the sociolinguistics department, applied linguistics, and did all the research for that department that summer, and taught all those classes, and taught a lot of brand new students that were going to Africa. And so she says to me, she says, oh, Mr. Allen, I mean, who were these students? What were their names? So I quickly, I trying to the top names I could remember, because there was only like 10 students stuff. And I said one of the people's names, and she stopped. She says, she started, just I could see the tears in her eyes. She says, he is my mentor, she said. He had become a director in Africa. I'd known a director of one of the African branches of SL, and I knew that. And we had kept in contact over the years too. And we had already looked for ways to kind of help. We had always looked for me to kind of help, but it just wasn't working out. It wasn't something, because I wasn't part of the organization, but I was. But the president of Wycliffe, or President LaSalle, who had been one of my teachers 30 years before, he just said, it's better that you actually didn't get affiliated with Wycliffe, because you've been better for us being outside of Wycliffe, giving us more testimony and speaking good about us, than if you had stayed inside. He says, you have more value being in all these advisors of all these linguistics association stuff. The president of the SL just said it was better that you stayed out to really. And so, and I had recommendations from all these different Wycliffe for jobs, right now, jobs over my career. And so we're sitting there, and she's saying, and so I'd been in contact with this student that he'd become a director of one of the West African branches stuff. And she said, but he is my mentor, Mr. Allen. He was the one that taught me everything I knew. So I'm sitting there, I don't know if I was crying and laughing at the same time, because I finally understood the value that I had in all this, is that it had not been in vain, and it had been invaluable. Um, I had been a piece of a puzzle or an ingredient on a pizza, whatever you want to call it. Um, that this mosaic, that happens of this whole big puzzle. But it's just I was kind of this kind of distorted kind of the piece that doesn't quite fit the puzzle. I could be used at certain times, but it couldn't always get me to fit the mold and different things along the way. I did help at certain points, but it's like the mold I didn't fit exactly, and so we kind of take the piece out and kind of let it find its trying to look at it. But I had had help to train him, and he had done really well, and he and his family, and so he had trained other families, and one of his families had trained, and they had worked up through their careers and Wycliffe and their experience on that to become, she became the director of Wycliffe that. And so that was I kind of felt at that moment in time, I felt like closure on that pain over life. And that was a really important thing. And I mean, that was 10 years ago. Okay. So I'm now feeling it differently because there have been other kind of things. I've finally realized I'm just not that piece of the puzzle that fits perfectly. Because I'm just always the different ways of funding it. It's okay, or different visibility, different ways of doing it, or have a completely different testimony that just always fit the way that the organizations themselves do it. And I work for big companies, so I know what this is. I totally understand this. Um, and but it just depends on how much organizations want to kind of adapt to that. I'm sure today, if today I came to Wycliffe with who I am, um, they would find a way to make it happen. But it just wasn't back then the way to do it. And sure, but and I think, and that's experience. Okay, hindsight is always 2020 vision. Um, so that's my whole story. Thanks for sticking around for almost an hour. Uh, Maybe a few people will watch it. Probably many won't. Many won't want to watch the whole thing. But I've already warned you up front. This is going to take a while, and I don't have this. This is not a pitch. It's not a present. It's just kind of the story. Um, and I hope my kids will, watch and understand a little bit more of the background of their dad and stuff and all that. But so whoever can benefit from it, I hope you can. Sorry, I got some music in the background, but I'm in a restaurant and I'm kind of just trying to. I do this in a lot of these video blogs, these vlogs in the restaurants to kind of uh, talk about things I think are valuable, and uh, and explain things that I think can contribute back to the community in general ways, and hope this has been just one of those things that can do that. So thanks again for listening.